everyone. Looks like we are live. How are you today? Please let me know how the sound and picture is so far. Thank you so much for hanging out. We have Patty all the way from Illinois. Great to see you. We have Colette all the way from Wisconsin. And Wendy all the way from Wendy all the way from Dallas. So we're talking like right down the Midwest, right? Straight down. That's who we have here today. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here. That means the world to me. I'm so glad you're here. I really appreciate you. So here we are for part 3 of painting the edgy, expressive portrait. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I did do some work between last live stream and tonight. I went ahead and worked on the pattern, the wallpaper pattern behind her, which is basically a Celtic knot. So I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to do that, and I did that offline. And I also darkened her hair a little bit with the detail mixture. Today, I'm actually going to go in with the detail mixture that is not watered down. So it's going to be straight detail mixture. The airbrush, of course, is yours and mine. The Extreme Patriot Arrow, customized by myself. And let me put the backing on. Is this the right backing? No. Let me get this one over here. There we go, that's perfect. And that's exactly what we wanted. So now we have this. We're gonna go ahead and put, Mr. Roy, how are you all the way from Jersey? Great to see you, my friend. So Roy, I'm just gonna go ahead and put in straight detail mixture. We're going darker, but just a tad bit. Well, actually 50% darker, but you know, still far away from your dark grays and everything like that. We build them up, right? We don't get there too soon. Too dark too soon, too bad. So we have to make sure that we do not let that happen, right? It's very important. So since we're airbrushing for the first time this evening, I am just going to give my airbrush a test. Nothing's coming out when I'm holding down. And wow, this is spraying really nice. I think I'll buy it, you know, the customized Extreme Patriot Arrow by myself. For myself and for my friends. So I'm so glad I get to share that expertise with you all. To have an airbrush that can do what a custom micron can do for a fraction of the cost. Not half the cost. Not 1/3 the cost, a fraction of the cost. So if you're interested, let me know. You can always go to inkflingers.com, and that would be a great investment for you. So I have my reference here, and you can see she's right here, looking all cute and everything, and kind of angry, right? So that's cool. So I'm very excited about that. And let's go ahead and just, as they say in YouTube world, let's just jump right into it, right? That's what we'll do. And let's see. Let's get to my correct screen here. And all right, so remember, when I go darker, what do I always do? I always make sure I start at the iris, and usually the iris on camera right, usually. Last night I was airbrushing on marble dust for an underpainting. Mr. Chris Garcia, how are you? How's everything, my friend? I'm really loving the graphic art you're doing. It's really amazing. Just fantastic stuff, my friend. As you can see, I'm getting very nice detail, very effortlessly. I'm able to work in very small areas. By pumping that trigger, I'm able to really control where I'm spraying, you know. So, Chris, always great to see you from upstate New York, yet he works in the Bronx, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, sir? We'll move this over. There we go. Move this down so we can see it. Let's get me out of the way. What do you say? Yep. No one wants to see me. Put that over there. All over the city. That's cool. One of these days we got to meet at the Met. I'll show you some of my favorite paintings. Wow, different part every day. Wow, that makes life interesting, doesn't it? As you can see, I can actually come up and do little parts of the eyelashes. And that's what this airbrush does for you for $149, which is very soon to go up. So I do have one left, and that is the Extreme Patriot Arrow with the larger cup. And this is it with the larger cup. It's the same detail, it just has a larger cup, which is great. Oh, cool, that would be great, definitely. We got to make that happen, Chris, okay? Because I'm renewing my membership to the Met, so I think I'll be able to get you in for free, but I have to renew my membership. It's like $25 now. It's crazy. And I'm seeing here that this angle is fine, but the this outer part of her eyebrow is actually kind of angled up, and this comes down here like that. And then so when you're painting the eyebrow, you're not just painting eyebrow, there's lights and darks, so you want to try and hit some of those darker areas and leave some of the lighter areas alone, you know. So that's really, really important. And let's go ahead and push this down here. So yesterday I was having trouble with the airbrush because this airbrush is from 2008, and it's the first time the nozzle broke. So I found out later after the live stream that I was painting with a broken nozzle. Was that crazy or what? But now everything is humming like a hummingbird. Look at those details. Holy cow. So Wendy's here. So Wendy's in the house. How you doing, Wendy? Good to see you. Definitely a quiet night so far, but quiet's good. I always say who's meant to be here is meant to be here. So if there's 10 people, if there's 50 people, it's who's meant to be here, right? So I always like to thank God for this live stream, because without him, it never would have happened. You know, I have the electricity, I have the fan going, even though it's 80 degrees here. The lights, everything, you know, my hands working, the airbrush is good. So I always want to thank God during the live stream. I don't want to ever forget that. So always thank him for the blessings. Okay, so now I did that. Let's move on over to eye number 2, right? So we're going to come over here, and I always start with the iris. Even though the compression of the values of the iris and the pupil are very close, so you don't want to overdo it, right? Even though you're like, iris is darker, not necessarily. So always look and make sure that that's the case. Now right here, we have more of the flesh inside the lower eyelid there. We just want to make sure we make that happen. And that comes up here. So there's a very little space there. And then here, we're just going to kind of bring this in like so. And then we're seeing some shadow from the lower eyelid. And I'm pumping that trigger, and I'm just ever so softly molding the forms, right? That's a little dark, but that's okay. We'll fix it. But, you know, you make mental notes and you go back, because you never want to work on wet paper. But you make a little mental note and you just go back to it. And, you know, it could be a couple of minutes. It could be later in the evening, but you have that in back of your head. Now, the eyebrow is just a dark mask. There's really no variation. And then it kind of disappears right into the dark mass of her hair, right? So you don't want to make, you never want to make borders that aren't there. So you want to, you know, basically always pay attention to what's happening. And you can see by darkening the eyes, everything starts to lighten up around. And what does that mean to us? So basically, all our midtones start to lighten up. So that means we have to work more in our midtones. So that's important, you know. And so very cool. Everyone is hanging out, talking, which is great. And we're just pulling this down. And now you can see by darkening those eyes, what do we have to do? We have to go down the center line. And now we're going to work on her cute nostrils. And let's do this. Okay. So right here, it's a little bit darker. And I'm always worried about, well, not worried, but mindful, right? Mindful of spidering. And then this kind of goes a little bit into this massive dark tone right here. It just goes right into the philtrum. And then really the values are compressed. You'll hear me talk about compressed values a lot. It's kind of a theme with me and my students. When we have to see those values compressed, when we do, we don't put detail or contrast that isn't quite there. And that's what we're working on, is not contrast. Contrast where it is, but not where it isn't. And that's what's going to give you not photorealism, but three dimensions. This value coming here. Now I do want to extend the shadow of the wing of the nostril, but it's still wet there. So again, you know, it's those mental notes that we're making to come back to it. Very important. Okay. And all right, so let's see how that's looking. Let's take a look. Okay, so you see things are darkening, and as we go down that center line, we're going to go ahead and kind of move out. Maybe we'll work on some of the darks of the the hands, and then move out from there. But that's what we're doing. Now, one of the things that I need to tell you is that the background is covered, right, with acetate. So I have a pattern in the background. I don't want any kind of overspray. Even a little bit of overspray is going to cause an issue. And that's so, so important, right? So let's make sure that we don't do the overspray thing, and be as clean as possible. Cleanliness is next to godliness, they say. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to move down to her lip. Now it is dark on the edge of this lip here, right about here. Then it stops, and then it becomes much lighter. But we have a dark right here, the compression and the dark caused by the philtrum. Go. And then over here, what's interesting, and I want you to look at this on your own work. As I come down here, the value is more throughout the whole lip. It's not darker on the edge. But watch what happens as we go down here. It gets darker on the bottom part of this upper lip. But notice that the upper edge of the upper lip, that contour just darn disappears. So it's right here. We see it, and now it's gone. There's no delineation between that lip and the upper part of the mouth, right? See that? It's not there. So you don't want to put it there, but you want to be aware of what you're doing, right? You don't just say like, oh, there's nothing there. You want to be aware as you're painting. And that's going to, like I said, this is what's going to, as you build it up, you're going to work on just working on your anatomy, working on your texture, and then working on your compression of values. When you are doing the compression of values correctly, when you actually go ahead and hit that contrast, bam, it's going to really just pop. And that's what we want. Mr. John Diekman, how are you, my friend? All the way from Wisconsin. How's it going? Is work still going, still working hard, or is it eased up a little bit? And are you still doing hybrid, right? You were doing sort of a hybrid thing going. Now, I want to show you all, it's not a trick, it's a tip. So we have our stump dedicated to graphite, not the same stump that we would use dedicated to pastel. No, they are different, and so make sure that those two do not meet. And because if you mix graphite with white pastel, it's just no fun. It's just not cool. So we want it to be cool. So I'm going to look for my sandpaper, which I do see way back here. Kapow, there it is. See that? And I'm just going to put a little more graphite, 6B. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to just graze it. Now, what are we doing this for, right? So let's go down to the nostril, which we were talking about before. Oh, wow. So John says, never eases up. Well, that's a good thing. It means that there's job security, or as much as we can have, right? So I like hearing that. So that's good. But don't work too hard, my friend. Easier said than done, I know. See that nostril there? And you see the wing of the nostril? The wing of the nostril has this dark cast shadow. Maybe not even a cast shadow. I would probably call it a edge. See that? See how I'm actually looking at it and making sure I have it correct? See here, I don't have to commit, right? And I can put that there and say, yep, that looks good. I like it. So now we can take our eraser and we can kind of sculpt it. So now that's exactly what I want. And we did two things. We did it without overextending ourselves and saying, oh, wow, that's not what I wanted. And then you have to erase it. Then you're hurting the integrity of the paper, blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and make this happen. we have that there. We'll let it dry. Once it's dry, then we will go ahead and erase that graphite. Think of it as the training wheels, right? Or a test run. When you all buy a new car, you want to test it. Okay, right here, this is dry enough. It's just not really making it to the edge. There we go. And nice, very happy with it. Again, I'm going to take my graphite and I'm just going to extend this a little bit. You want your mark to really be accurate. Precise is the word, right? And Pam, how are you, Pam? All the way from Virginia. How is everything? I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming. So everyone, welcome Pam. So that's so cool. There we go. So let's look and see how we're liking that. So that nose looks good, right? You know, it has solidity, you know. Oh, so cool, Pam. So glad you're doing well. And Pam's unforgettable, as every one of you are. How could I forget yous? I'm so touched that you come and hang out with me on Wednesday. Thank you. And that's sincere. Like I always say, there's so much to do, but you decide to come hang out with me, and that's just unbelievable. So, thank you. So as you can see, we're going down the center line of the body, and we worked on the lips, but the corners of her lips, those are interesting, right? Let's go ahead and address that together. So now we're going down here. But notice what I'm doing. I'm moving. Now remember last week I was having trouble with the airbrush. And so I actually did some of these knuckles with the airbrush after I changed the nozzle, which with Badger is so easy to do. It only costs you like $17. But as opposed to like $60, $70 with other brands. But I was able to do these with the airbrush, and then some of these knuckles I did with Travis's airbrush, which I sent out, and that is he ordered the Extreme Patriot 105 from my website, and look what that does. Look at the work that it does. I mean, this is definitely custom micron detail. And it's not like you have to have incredible knowledge to get to that detail. This airbrush and the 105 just wants to give you that detail. Okay, enough of that. Now let's go ahead and work on the corner of her mouth. But again, we have this secret weapon. This is a secret weapon. Why do I know about it? Because I'm a fine artist. I studied in New York for like 8 years, right? As a kid. And studied at, the National Academy School of Fine Arts, and scholarship student, merit scholarship student. Studied art history at Long Island University. So I'm well aware of all the different tools that we could use from the fine art world that's going to help your airbrushing, right? That's what I like. I like doing that. And in the airbrush world, well, this is kind of like a secret. And you guys are getting it. I don't get a lot of views, so you know what? The guys and girls who are here, you get on that inside track, and that is really great. Mr. Steve Leahy, how are you? Great to see you. All the way from Ohio. How are you, sir? So glad you're here. Loved your live stream on Monday. Steve did an amazing live stream on Monday. Just incredible. If you want to see how to really work on anything, but to work and paint something like a car or a plane, nobody does it better than Steve Leahy. So Monday nights at 6 p.m., check him out on Facebook, Steve Leahy, and I guarantee you'll learn a lot. Oh, thank you, Mr. Steve, for the super chat. I really appreciate that, sir. Thank you. That really helps. It helps keep the lights on. It helps keep keep food in the fridge. Not that much, mind you. Got to keep the weight down, but it keeps food in the fridge, and I really appreciate that, Mr. Steve. Thank you. And it's an honor to have you in my live stream. And I mean that, sir. But like I said, you know, Steve is just kicking butt. The magnets that I use, thanks to Steve. Some of the cutting I do with the razor blade, thanks to Steve. So, if he can help little old me, go into his live stream and his YouTube channel is going to help you. So, you want to learn from a modern master, there he is. So, and that's just telling it like it is. It's not a plug. It's just telling it like it is. And so, definitely. You know, he's very gracious at what he gives in his live streams, which he could do that behind a paywall, but he just graciously gives, and that's admirable. And stuff like that. When I see Steve Leahy give, it really pushes me to give, right? Pushes me to not hold back on the live stream. Because if Steve's not holding back, why should I? And so, sort of like, you know, working on the same cause, you know, kind of buoys you. Is that the word, buoy? Like Bowie Kuhn. He was the commissioner of baseball back in the 70s and 80s. I'm gonna darken. See how I can darken the this cast shadow. And this is what the Extreme Patriot Arrow does. Look at that. Bam. Just that beautiful line, right? Very true. Very true. And, oh, Mr. Travis, how you doing? Your ears must be burning. So, I was talking about your airbrush earlier. So, I was letting them know that these wrinkles, some of these wrinkles were done with your airbrush. And so that's really cool. So the airbrush never leaves. And so the airbrush never leaves my studio until it's doing that. If it's not doing that, it stays. And so that's what I did. I wasn't 100% happy. I think it would have been okay to ship it out earlier, but something inside me said, nope, this needs a little more tweaking. And I'm glad I did, because when I left, when I actually packed up the airbrush, I was like, this thing is like, I want to keep it for myself. If I don't feel like I want to keep that airbrush for myself, then I don't ship it out. That's the criteria. Because then selfish Tim's like, I could use another airbrush, you know. So we got to make sure we keep selfish Tim at bay. But still, I love doing that, you know, having an airbrush that I'm so proud of that I almost have a hard time letting it go. The airbrush, to me, when I work on the airbrush or the inks, that's like an extension of my art. And I really feel that. It is an extension of my art. And it has to be. And if it's not, then you know, why even customize it, right? I have to treat it like that. And so very cool. Oh, well, thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's important to me, you know. I really appreciate that. So these angles kind of shoot down. I want to get that correctly. And the same thing here. So it doesn't matter so much the wrinkles. What matters is the angle. And you don't want them equidistant or the same size. Why? Because then it no longer looks organic. We're organic, you know, we're nature. And so we exhibit the same kind of controlled chaos that's in nature all around us is in us. And in this young lady, those wrinkles in the lips. Remember, not not equidistant and not parallel. Remember that when you're doing eyelashes, eyebrows, wrinkles, wrinkles in the fingers, make sure that you're not parallel and not equidistant, and you're going to be okay. Oh, well, thank you, Pam. I appreciate that so much. You guys are great. Really very cool. And so right here, we have this little bit of a hard edge along her finger. Let's make that happen. We're just going to put that hard edge right there. We're going to let that dry, and I'm going to erase it a little bit. I'm not 100% happy, but that's okay. You can't always be 100% happy. And let's see, right here. Just put that there like that. There we go. We have that dark right there on the finger, on the inside of the finger. There we go. And this side of her nail bed is a little bit darker. I'm just going to spray that because everything is experienced the light in the same way. Her nose and that little bed of her index finger, like mine, is experienced. It's just a little bit. Mine's just a little bit bigger, but you can see how it is. Everything's being affected by the light. And hopefully you have one light source, right? One light source is going to make life a lot easier, trust me. So when you're finding reference photos, try to have one light source. However, your good photographers are going to have several light sources because they know how to quietly make the lighting more pleasing, right? So that's one of my hobbies is portrait photography. So when you use portrait photography, basically you know how to use at least 3 lightings to make your photo look really good. So looking at here, a lot of your telltale signs would be your catch light in the pupils. I only see one light, so what I'm thinking is that it is just one light source, but you see how the shadow here is? It's not completely black, so there would be a reflector, and that just could be a white piece of foam core. It could be a silver reflector. And what that does, it bounces the light that's coming from left to right, right? And it's going to bounce off of that. And it's just going to come as a secondary light source and illuminate these shadows. So you see detail in those shadows. And she doesn't have too much of the raccoon eyes, right? So, if you guys and girls are really serious, so someone might go to me and say, Tim, I'm really serious. And I'm like, how serious? And I'm so serious. No. So, basically, and then I would say, what I want you to do is to get into portrait photography. I don't want you to become, the most amazing portrait photographer ever, but there are courses online that you can take, live streams. The website is, one of my favorite photographers is Daniel Norton, and he's a photographer at Arama, and he will talk about, the settings you need to do portrait photography. And, once you learn those settings and you learn how to use light and you learn about things like the inverse square law, stuff like that, then all of a sudden light becomes this thing that's alive. In your painting, life is the vibration and electricity in your painting, right? Think of your computer, right? Your computer is a computer, but without the electricity, it doesn't come alive. So you have your model, this pretty lady. She's kind of ticked off, not sure why she's so mad. But the thing is that without the light, used either by flash or ambient light in the studio, it wouldn't turn on. You wouldn't see it. So when you really study light, and photography will make you study light, then when you're working on a portrait, it just comes alive, right? The light comes alive. You're no longer just painting values, but you're painting electricity. You're painting energy. You're painting life itself, and that's really exciting, everybody. Uh, so portrait photography is really important. I want to see if I can show you one of my portraits I did. And I've been doing portrait photography for about a year, but anything I study hard, right? So let's see if I can get that for you. Give me one moment, guys. Talks amongst yourselves. And I'll put music. Dun 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 ba da bum. That's my music. Okay, so let's see. I am going to look for Raquel was my model. She was so kind to pose for me, and I really do appreciate that. So this is one of my forays into portrait photography. Like I said, I wasn't a portrait photographer before last year. And I learned how to do the different light sources and use gels and do really interesting things with the light. And that was just really fantastic. And but it really helps me to understand. Hey Tone, how you doing? Great to see you all the way from FLA. How are you? And so you can see how I'm able to control the light. Now, one of the great things about when you really learn portrait photography and flash photography, that I set the camera to, if it was just the ambient light in the room, everything would be black. But I set up the flashes so only the flash will illuminate my subject, and set the f-stop and the aperture and shutter speed so I'm in total control of the light going into the studio. So I have a hair light, I have a kicker light, I have a light with a gel on the background. That's a white background, and I gelled it up. So that's basically one. I want to show you one more in the same model. And at the same portrait shoot, I was able to get a whole different image. And let me show you this one. This is the same exact photo shoot, and look at the difference of what I'm able to get just by manipulating the light. See that? I'm able to do things like that. Just totally same background, same shirt, same girl, just manipulating the light, taking the gels off of the camera, doing things like that. So, why is that needed? Why is that important for those who are doing airbrush portraits? Because you will understand what light does when you manipulate it, and you know how adding more light and taking away light, either by using your aperture or using the distance of the flash from the model, or the power of the flash, and knowing that by moving that light source, you change everything. You learn about reflectors and reflected light and all those different things. That is key to understanding. And I know some people might say, well, I don't want to become a portrait photographer. But that's not what it is. It's something that's going to take your portrait photography from here to here. And that's one of the things that if someone's like, I'm really serious, I'm dying to get to that next level, that's what I would tell them. Mr. Brad, how are you? So good to see you, my friend. So we're still moving down the center line. Let's look at her teeth area, right? So let's come over there. Let's see. Okay, so we did the upper part of her mouth. We did the wrinkles. However, there's a dark on the under part of her lip there. And it's slightly darker. I'm just going to come down here like this. And then right in here, in between her forefinger and her ring finger, it's a little bit darker. Then right here, that's fine. Right here, we got a little bit of darkness in this corner. And now we can start molding this form a little bit. Just hitting this dark right here, under here. And that's your orbicularis oris. It's like a rubber band-like muscle going around the mouth. And I'm pumping that trigger and just giving some life into here, creating some depth. And again, we have the edge of the finger. It has like a dark line. People say there's no lines. That's baloney. There is line when you're painting realism. There's line everywhere. This is definitely a line. What's causing it, as the finger is turning away from the light, it actually is getting darker and darker, and on the very edge, it's the darkest, right? Because it's turning away. Just like if it was turning towards the light away from us, you would have a rim light. It's the lightest. So those are things that are important, you know? And one of the things, I leave this stuff on YouTube because it may not be what you need to hear now, but it may be what you need to hear later. So always remember to, to revisit these live streams, because I know they're going to help you, if not now, later. I love that expression, when the teacher is ready, the student will appear, and I really think that's true. And right here, we have this little triangle shape. There we go. Right here. There we go. So, when we come in with the white pastel, that's going to change things. I'm going to dust down these teeth because they are far from white. Not that she doesn't have nice white teeth. It's just that they're in shadow. They're inside the mouth. So, by the rules of light, they're not going to be, they are definitely not going to be white. And Tone says, I'm at the laundromat and it's hard to hear even with headphones. Okay, no problem, Tone. Always a pleasure, my friend. I hope the laundry goes well. And once again, I could see how I could use this as secret weapon. Why go ahead and play around with the airbrush when you can set it up and see if you got it right with the graphite first, and we'll come back to that. Now, who's to say you can't just leave that there? Maybe, right? There are no rules here. There are no rules here. So, and now I'll just kind of dust this down, and let's work on the turning of the form on her finger. There we go. Down the center line of the body, right? That's what we're doing. And let's take a look. And so as we go ahead and pull away, now we can see things are nicely darkening up. We'll leave the hand alone. So let's see if we can start working on some other areas that we may be neglecting. And I think we can work on this zygomatic arch here. So, Dwayne, how you doing, my friend? All the way from Central Cali, San Luis Obispo. So cool, which is a Cal State College out of there, isn't there? So, I think they're called the slugs, aren't they? Like some kind of slug. So that's pretty cool. Oh, so Travis, great question, asked, what I reduce the inks with? I reduce them with distilled water, and some other little mixtures that kind of help the flow. But those other little mixtures I put in are very minute. So basically, it's the, an exact formula of the water with the inks and how they kind of the Cal Poly Mustangs. Now, who are the slugs? There's some kind of slug. California team. Let me see. I'm going to look real fast. Cal State slugs. Let's see if I'm right. The banana slug. The banana slug is the University of California, Santa Cruz. They're called the banana slugs. That's funny. So at least the San Luis Obispo, they're not slugs, right? So you got that going for you, sir. So that's cool. Okay, so we're looking at her anatomy, and I always love to take our airbrush to the next level. Next level education, because you guys are next level people. And so I want to do that for you. So we're going to go here. I'm going to go to my anatomy file. Ooh, that could be like one of those crime shows. Anatomy files. Dun-dun. Let's see. So she's straight on. So we need a straight on anatomy skull here. Okay, here we go. There we go. So now we can look at her and see that right here is the space between her zygomatic bone, right, which comes over here and hooks up to the maxilla. So you see this is the maxilla that's on this side of the shadow here. This is the maxilla, which connects over here to the zygomatic bone and kind of gives us that orbital ridge here, right? So temporal ridge it's also called. But right here is that space that is created from the zygomatic bone to the maxilla, all right? And you can see the maxilla. Let me bring in the maxilla, shall we? Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if this works. It does. Look at that, guys. That's incredible. So now you can see what I'm talking about is this. This is the maxilla. See how it comes down and comes here, comes down from here, right? The maxilla. And then this is the zygomatic bone. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Put this right over here. So you can definitely see that here is the zygomatic bone, and then this zygomatic connects to the maxilla, and there's a space between the zygomatic bone and the maxilla and the jawbone, and that's creating this dark, right? So we're going to reproduce it, but we're going to reproduce it with the knowledge of the anatomy, right? Which is so important. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make this happen. So now I'm painting with that knowledge that here's my maxilla. And I have to remember that I'm also painting with the detail mixture that's straight. So I might increase my distance here. And I went a little dark there, so I'm going to erase, but we'll wait on that. You never want to erase. So you see I'm establishing that zygomatic bone in the maxilla here. Very important. Maybe I could darken the shadow of the lower eyelid just a little bit. Right over here. Maybe increase the size a little bit. And right here, this is nice and dark a little bit, a little darker. And I always talk about compressing those values, right? So right over here, it gets lighter with the retrorbicularis oculi fat, right? So we want to make sure that we make it light, but we don't want it too light, right? So we have to guard against that. But in this case, I think we can go a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take my non-aggressive eraser, and I'm just going to see how when we know about these anatomical forms, it becomes alive, and we know about light and how it reacts to form, then we start doing things that are a little bit on the next level, right? And that's what we all want. We want next level stuff. I know I do. And I know you all do too. So one of the things I was talking with a student today when we were working on hair, that okay, you're painting hair, but remember that hair has characteristics. That hair has a personality. That hair has life. That hair has anatomy. Some people have very thin hair. Some people have thick hair. Some people have straight hair. Some people have kinky hair. So really try and understand the characteristics of what you're painting. That, my friends, is going to take you to that next level, because you're not just copying what you're seeing. A Xerox machine can do that, but you're actually trying to understand and kind of make in your own way an editorial of what you're painting, right? You're not just, reproducing or just taking a photo, but you're like a journalist. You're giving your own insight and viewpoint into it. And that's exciting, and that's what really connects you when you're working with Airbrush, connects you to the great masters. You all are connected to the great masters: Rembrandt, Vermeer, Michelangelo, Raphael, John Singer Sargent, Hans Holbein the Younger. You are connected, so you want to stay connected and learn from them. And what I do learn is that, your hair has a characteristic, it has a personality, and when you're painting it, you need to try and find that personality, right? And then it becomes more alive. You're not only reproducing an image, it's much deeper, and I like that. I like the fact that it's much deeper. Okay, so that's nice. We darkened that, and maybe we can just straighten this out a little bit right here. Right here between the eyes is called the glabella. Is it glabella or glabellum? I think it's glabella. And that's the depression between the eyes, just where you get to between the orbital eminences and the nasal eminence, nasal protuberance, and then you have the nasal bone coming down. And all right, so now we did light side, right? Now let's work on shadow side. Remember, shadow side is often very similar to the light side, but it's darker. So you want to keep that in mind, that everything's going to be a little bit darker. Now, of course, you do the 1 second rule. You're not going to take for granted everything's darker, but going into it, you're going to say, wow, the shadow side has to be darker to the qualities of the light, right? Because light can't get there. And not only that, the light has more to travel. So with the inverse square law, the light dissipates at certain proportions. And we're talking like exact mathematical proportions, right? It's not like, you've got to guess what it is. It's very predictable. It will do exactly the way that light is, with the study of physics, light is very predictable. So see how I'm pumping that trigger and I'm establishing that shadow side. And right now things may look a little harsh, but it doesn't matter. It's how you finish it that matters. What's going on is that I'm just getting texture here and relative value, building them up. So when I do come in with the dark accents and the white pastel, things are going to pop. I'm going to go get a ginger ale. I think it's my last one, which I'm going to walk to the store tomorrow and get one more. Be right back. This is a sad moment indeed. I am out of ginger ale. This is my last can, which is only a half a can, but I do have water. Dun dun dun. Wah wah. Okay, so let me just take some ginger ale here. I needed that. Now I was going to take the can and crush it on my head, but I figured I'd spare you all that. So that's important. Okay, so now we see here, if we look at this here, we can see on the top part of her skull, right here, are two protuberances of the frontal bone, and then we have the supraorbital eminences or protuberance above the eye socket, and then right in here it's a little bit darker. I do not see that in the picture, but you want to know something? I'm going to put it in. Just ever so lightly and ever so subtly. Because you know what? It's there. And it's how I can make it a little bit better than the photo. And you can definitely see by the proportions and the way that the light's hitting the forehead where that space in between the supraorbital eminences and the top of the forehead, right? Now, if this was a portrait commission, I wouldn't put something like that in because it may not be beautification. So that's why I would, do it if I'm working on a personal piece like this, right? Or a demonstration. So that looks good. I'm happy. And I'm just going to extend this dark here. And again, I got to be mindful that I'm working with the full strength detail mixture. I'm not going with the detail mixture that's watered down. So it's a little more punch to what I have here. Okay. And so now what we can do is we could move down to her hands. So we're just going to move this here. And let's bring her hands in here. So I do have a stencil for the hands, but I'm going to draw caution to the wind. And we are going to work on the contour of her hand there. There's, like I said, there's going to be a line. And that line is not there because I'm doing this kind of calligraphic line. But like I said, as a form turns away from the light and it goes darker, it's going to create a line, but it really is the form getting darker, okay? So only do the lines when you see the lines, right? And as always, checking the airbrush that it's working well, and it is. Okay, and we're just going to shape some of these knuckles. And I believe the human hand has 26 bones in each hand, and the human foot has 25, but let's double check. Bones in the human hand. Okay, so 27 bones in the hand and 26 bones in the foot. That's amazing. Another fun fact about hands is that there are no muscles in the hands. And that's weird, right? Because we do move them in the finger, I mean not in the hands, but in the fingers there are no muscles. Not even in the thumb. The muscle is here in the thumb and the muscles for the hands in the forearm. So I think that's kind of interesting. Okay. And Wendy says we are nothing but covered skeletons. Yeah, you know, it is scary but true, right? And that's kind of scary when you think about it. And let's see. So some of this work I would probably do with the detail mixture, right? So I am with the detail mixture watered down. So I'm going to not do that. Let's see if we can. Well, I don't want to work on the hands on the hair just yet, the individual hairs, but I can do some shadows that those hairs will cause once I paint them. So I'm going to put some shadow right there, some shadow here, bring this down, deepen this cast shadow created by the finger. Okay, let's deepen the hair color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the covering shield that I made. Especially for this. So it covers her finger and her face. We don't want overspray. We want to guard against overspray. So if you spend an extra day guarding against overspray, your painting's going to look much better. So spend an extra day guarding against overspray. That's another Timism. I gotta write that one down. And you might say, spend an extra day on overspray. Yeah, definitely. Take the time because it's that important to make sure that everything is super clean. Because it's that important. So we're working on the hair, and I also want to cover her. Do I have a hair only? No, I don't. And I don't have a hand only. So what we'll do is, I did have a hand only, but I'm sure it fell. They're invisible, so of course I will not find it. But let's work up here. Put these up to the edge, these magnets right up to the edge. And you see how we're guarding against anything happening to overspray on the face and also on the background. So I spent that extra day to make sure that there was no overspray. Sun Tzu, the Art of War. Every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. So my painting is already clean because of the preparation that was involved. So now I'm deepening those values, which are going to pull back the dark that we did, right? Because we worked hard to get the dark of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and the fingers, right? We darkened them up, and they were a little bit ahead of everything else. And this is going to knock them back. And then as it goes, you know, this darkens, you darken the eyes, nose, and the mouth, then you darken this, and you darken the eyes, nose, and mouth, and before you know it, the values are where you want, but you built those values up, you know. Dwayne says he does a lot of paint. He does a lot of skulls, paints all kinds of ways. That's very cool. Travis says skulls with eyeballs and hair are fun to paint. That's funny. I'm sure they are. And we got to make sure that we protect against overspray, almost psychotically. Cleanliness is so important no matter what medium you have, whether you're working in oils, gouache, airbrush, watercolor, pastel. That's what's going to separate the masters from the students, is that preparation of cleanliness and to really bring things together. Wendy says those crazy skulls. And Travis says, good thing about painting skulls, you can't really make mistakes. They all look cool. Mistakes just add texture. True. I am out. I am out of the detail mixture. So once I do, make sure I'm away from my painting. And I take my detail mixture. And, you know, I'm going straight detail, which is twice as dark of what I've been painting with. So that's going to take this to another level. And then we're going to deepen that dark as we go, right? So don't spare any magnets. Make sure, whoa, okay, so keep your head in the game, Tim. Do not spray right after when you fill your airbrush. Don't just go right in like a cowboy. You know, test it off to the side, make sure nothing weird happened, there's no buildup of ink or paint on the edge, so when you go shoot, psh, again, every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. So you win that battle because you prepare for it. Know your enemy and not yourself, you win half the battles. Know yourself and not know the enemies, you win half the battles. Know yourself and your enemies, and you win all the battles. So, knowing my proclivity to make mistakes, knowing what airbrush does when I have ink on here, when I don't have my head in the game, and when I spray for the first time, if I have just a little bit of ink there and I go like that, splat. Then what happens? Then I lost, right? And that's important. Wendy says, I bet she could make mistakes that couldn't be recovered. And Travis says, completing a good, accurate portrait is probably the most rewarding accomplishment in my opinion. It is one of them, right? It is the highest level of painting in the Western tradition, right? Of painting, which goes back before the Renaissance. And that's like the 1300s. Okay, so now what we can do is, I think I do have something to cover that hand, if I'm not mistaken. No, I don't. Okay. It's all good. Okay, so I want to cover that hand, and I could use my freehand shield, and because I don't want to work so hard on that hand and get ugly overspray on it. So I'm just going to crawl along that surface, right? And I'm going to get that dark right next to that hand. And it's just going to add clarity. And notice that I did not even paint one detail in the hair. Too early. You know, don't be concerned with superfluous detail. First, the hair is a helmet, right? And then it's a sculpture, and then they're individual hairs, right? So first it's just a plain old helmet, then there's large shapes that are in that hair, right? And now you start, at this point, is you start looking at some of those large shapes in the hair. But to go ahead and start working on individual hairs right now, Not a good idea. Here's another trick. No, not a trick, a tip. Is to spray away from your freehand shield, spray away from your stencil, spray away from your custom shields. When you do that, the air is going away, not underneath, and you're not going to have underspray. So your second worst enemy is, well, you have spidering, you have overspray, and then number 3 is underspray, and people don't talk about that enough. Now, underspray is important. That's why you have the magnets and you put them right on the edge. That's what Mr. Leahy does on his live streams. He really is great with that. And the insidious, in the background, lurking in the shadows, is blue shift, even with ink. So that's something that is just waiting in the shadows to ruin your painting. So those are your enemies: spiders, overspray, and underspray. So make sure that you always guard against those enemies. They're out to ruin your painting. So you always prepare for them. You always know your enemy and know what the MO is of that overspray, right? And that underspray and that blue shift. What makes blue shift tick? Why does it do it? And how can you eradicate it? And that's the kind of attitude that's going to get your work to the next level. Whether you're working in oils and pastel, they're all going to have their comparable blue shift. They're all going to have their individual issues with that particular medium. But like Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, know yourself and not your enemy, you win half the battles. Know your enemy and not yourself, you still win half the battles. But if you know yourself and the enemy, you're going to win all the battles. So know those issues. Know exactly what your enemy with the airbrush is going to do. And anatomy, that's another thing. That's another way of knowing your weaknesses and strengthening them before you even fight them, is knowing anatomy. Because, we're people and we're always going to, miss the boat when it comes to seeing things for what they really are. So let's go ahead. I darkened her hair. Right here I can darken, right? Okay, let's darken this. Let's see, right here we can darken. Okay, so let's lift this center here and see how it looks. And Travis says, Tim, is it possible to get your volume up? Of course, my friend. Let's make that happen. So I am going to pump up the volume. Let's see. That should be really good. How about that? Does that sound good, sir? So that should, and I'll raise the gain. Raise the gain to alleviate the pain. Let's see. Let me know how that is. And hopefully that resolved it. And thanks, Travis, for that insight. That's important. So better, cool. Is it much better or could be better even more? Let me lift this up here. How's that? Is that better? Because now it's more pointed towards me. Let's see. So let me know how that is. Hopefully that is better. And I also raised the volume on that mic, so that should do it. It might make it too loud. Yeah, so I raised the volume on the mic. See that? All right, So good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And let's remove her face shield and see. We will reveal on what we need to do. And you can see now we are ready to maybe come in with the paintbrush, right? So that would be good. Sound is good. Very, very cool. Thank you, guys. So remember, all those extra tops you have on those cups that you mix your airbrush paint with, I keep them because in this case I could use it. Let's see. It's in the pantry. And now we're going to start working on some of the individual hairs. I'm going to do the detail mixture because why not, right? So let's just do the detail. If we need to go darker, we go darker. Now I'm going to get some water because I want to be able to clean the brush as I go. And I'm going to get a really good paper towel. The paper towel is my favorite in the world, Viva paper towels. There's these cloth-like paper towels. They are amazing. They're expensive, yet amazing, and they last forever. It's like a 3 times roll. I work in oils as well, and so I need a lot of paper towels that are absorbent, and so this really does the trick. All right, and I have my paper because I do like a dry brush technique, right? So let's make this happen. Oh, okay, might be your stereo cord. I got it maxed out, fairly quiet. Still? Is it still fairly quiet? Oh, cool. Okay. So I think the gain was too low. I'm actually going to increase the gain. And I'm actually going to raise the volume on the mic. Even more so. And that should do it. But thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Brad says sound is good. Thank you, partner. Okay, so let's get everything out of the way. Sound is perfect. Raul from New Jersey. How are you, my friend? Great to see you. How you doing? Some great artwork coming from Mr. Raul out there in Jersey. I'm saying out there in Jersey. That's where I am. We're about a half hour from each other, right there, Raul? See how I can start coming in with those individual hairs. Since I'm a righty, I'm going to take all these superfluous magnets and get them out of the way so that my hand is unfettered. And so thank you so much, Travis, for your help as well, and Dwayne and Raul and Brad, and so thank you for that. And we're just going to start painting some of these hairs. And it's going to go a long way to getting us to where we got to go. So let me get my airbrush glove. Okay, so these airbrush gloves are amazing. You never want to dirty your work with the oils of your hand. So that's why this airbrush glove is really fantastic. And Wendy says, where did I get the background? I just kind of found a design and kind of reproduced it in Krita and went from there. And so you can find the Celtic, those Celtic knots everywhere, as you know. You know, as artists, we really need to, whether we're oil painters or acrylic painters, airbrush artists, we really need to embrace the internet and digital art and everything. Raoul says, I'm always here, but I'm painting along with you. Great. Somerset, yeah, about just down the turnpike a few, right, Raoul? So cool. Raoul and I are neighbors, and Roy is a neighbor. He lives down south, not too far from Tom's River, I think, and maybe closer to Philadelphia, about 45 minutes from Philly. And so Mr. Roy's a fellow Jersey guy like me. Exit 10 for Raoul. Cool. When I went to I went to Glassboro State, which is now Rowan University. I did that, and I think that was exit 2. I studied for a semester with Daniel Chard, and that was just amazing. See, when I went to school, it was always because of a teacher. I never gave a darn about the school. I only followed teachers I felt that had something to teach me. I didn't care about anything else. And that's what you guys and girls should do when you study. You know, if you see the artist's work and you love it, that's who you should be studying with. And notice I'm not trying to, solve every problem right off the bat. I'm just working on some hair here and there. This right here is just a couple of hairs. We got one coming down like this. Oh, cool. So volume is great now. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'll remember these settings for next time. See, by being patient and getting the shadows, so when you put the hair, then the shadows kind of fit right in place. And having that detail mixture, I can get those really light hairs, which is cool. Also with hair, make sure you don't go equidistant in the same thickness. That is a recipe for disaster. So know that going in. And make sure you get rid of the excess water right here. See how I get rid of the excess water? Then I put this aside. Preparation is everything. Proper management of your materials is everything. Now we have this really cool hair that's coming straight down. Dun dun dun, right? So let's get rid of some of these. Even though these magnets might be important, not so important to impede your hand, right? And we're going to do a pincer movement. So we're going to bring this hair down here, right? And then we're going to make sure we get the hair correct up here. And then we just sort of pincer them together. There we go, like that. And that's how you make sure you get it correct. Don't try this Olay like all the way down. Chances are something's going to happen on the way. So this way, with the pincer movement, the two sides are going to meet. And everything's going to be perfect. The brush I'm using is the Winsor & Newton Cotman brand. It's the #1 rigger brush. I love it. It's inexpensive. I think it's maybe like $7. Can't beat it. It does what you ask it to do, and that's all you need to know. Little hairs coming down. So you want to get the characteristics of the hairs, right? You don't just want to paint the hairs. You want to get their characteristics. And so even if you're not exact with the hair, if you're getting the characteristics, are the hairs thin? Are they flyaway? Are they stiff? Are they dark? All those different things are the characteristics of the hair. If you get the characteristics of the hair as well as the direction, then you have wiggle room to not get it perfect. And you know what? Hair is a cumulative thing, so I'll do some of it now and then I'll move on. I'm not going to sit here and, spend the next half hour doing hair, but I am going to, get an idea of the characteristics of the hair and get them correct, like so. And notice the hair doesn't look like wires. It's almost like I'm doing like a dagger stroke. They kind of, you're working on them and then they just like disappear, right? They sort of gradually disappear. Okay, so now we did that. What else can we do with this paintbrush, right? Since we have it with the ink, why not? Let's go into her eyelashes, right? I can paint it with the airbrush just fine, but you always want to use the best tool for the job. Okay. Now, let's see. Now we don't have too many eyelashes to contend with. There's not much going on. Don't make them up. Just paint the eyelashes that you see. And notice that I kind of flick them like so. Get rid of the excess water because then you don't have control and they get too dark. So your eyelashes are not going to be eyelash shapes a lot of times. They're going to be really irregular and you want to get that irregularity of it. And here, same thing, you just want to come down like this and get this shape there like so. Now we do have a couple right here, a couple of parallels straight up and down like that, and then you have a real light one right there. And so while we're here, let's take advantage of the paintbrush. It could really give us a beautiful shape of that iris, the pupil. I could work on this edge of the iris here, and then we could work on some of the details of the eyelashes, and then this shape coming here. I can really define that as I go, right? Not bad. Now, we have the ability now, since we do have this airbrush, not this airbrush, this paintbrush, and we can define this shape right here. And we can see as we're working that this shape is going up a little more, and then we'll erase that. But always pay attention to angles. It's just a bunch of angles. Let's see what I missed. Eyelashes, yes, Wendy. Okay, so I'm here. Let's go and work on this eyeball, the other one. We don't have many eyelashes to contend with, but we do have some nice darks we could work on. So we can work on the pupil. And we're setting up for that highlight later. And we can define the iris a little bit. This is all not so dark, but there's a nice dark highlight right here. A dark accent, I should say. And then we have some darks right here. There we go. Not much happening here. Okay. And then we zoom out and we can see now the eyes are looking good. Let's do the eyebrows. Let's do the eyebrow on camera right, forgive me. Now we have the paintbrush. Let's do paintbrush stuff. Remember the characteristics of what you're painting. What are the characteristics of these eyebrow hairs? What are they doing? How thick are they? How dark are they? Are they parallel? Are they thicker at the beginning? Those are things we should ask. There we go. And then we could work on some of these errant hairs going this way. What directions are they going, right? So some of these are going this way. Some are going this way. Some are going straight across. And then the darks are over here. And then you can see some of those patterns that are going to help us to create the characteristics of her cute eyebrow here. Once again, what's happening? What are the characteristics? What directions are they going? Are they kind of parallel? Sometimes they are. And then over here, just kind of bring that. So you're not just painting an eyebrow as, you know, as a woman would just paint them on, right? You are painting them as if they have an anatomy, right? There's an anatomy to them. There we go. Now, it's exciting because what before was just something very loose now is getting tighter. We're far from done, right? I'm not saying we're done, but that eyebrow is looking really nice. So let's move on to the eyebrow in camera left. Not much going on. It's in shadow. It's obscured. But there are these little dots here, and I can put them in. And ask myself, what are the characteristics of those dots? Are they like little commas? Are they semicolons? Those are things that you can ask yourself that is going to help you to represent the characteristic of her eyelashes, right? Her eyebrows. And let's zoom out. Okay, so now we can see, yes, you know, we still have a long way to go. We are not remotely feeling like we are making huge leaps and bounds, but we're getting closer and closer to our destination, which is a finished portrait with expression and edgy emotion. That's what we're doing. Now we can come back and we could take our paintbrush and we can move down to her teeth and the negative spaces caused by her teeth. Make this happen, everybody. Let's do this. Wendy says, I'm going to say goodnight. Been fighting a migraine all week, and take care. I hope you have a wonderful night, Wendy. Thank you for spending time, and I pray that your headache goes away and you have a wonderful, fun day tomorrow, okay? Feel better. Now I feel like I'm actually starting to get the shape of her teeth. Took a while, but I feel like I'm getting it. And it will take a while sometimes. It's okay. And you want to look at those negative spaces. There we go. All these things, they take time, and we're not looking for a likeness at all. We got bigger fish to fry. So we are looking for the truth in the shapes and the anatomy. We don't care about a likeness. The likeness will happen when all the things are in place, right? Everything kind of falls in place. That's what we're hoping for. Go. And maybe this white kind of extends. So I will extend this space between, not extend, but close that gap a little bit there. So now I can very quickly move on over to this side of her mouth. Once again, get rid of the excess water. And so that's cool. So with these live streams, I hope that in a small way, something I say or something that could help you in your own art and kind of makes your own experience better. And that's what I hope with these live streams, that does occur. I can hit this dark right here, just like so. And then right here along the nail bed, we have a nice dark here. That might be a little overzealous. We can always lighten that up, but let that dry before we make our final decision. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that's a little too dark, but that's okay. But you don't want to fix it right away. You just come back to it. Have it in the back of your head. Go. And let's zoom out and see how it's going. Yeah, so you see, even before we go in with the medium mixture and the darker values, we're getting more clarity. And things are starting to shape up slowly, but they are shaping up nonetheless. Down here, this shape between the fingers, let's go there, between the forefinger and the middle finger. There we go. Give it the clarity that it deserves. Bring this over. There we go. And move on over to the other finger in between the two. And let's see. So here we could fix that angle. That angle is going down more like 5 o'clock than 4 o'clock that I had it. Little changes that make, a little change doesn't make a big difference, but a lot of little changes, that's cumulative, and that makes a big difference in the long run. Oh, thank you, Brad. Brad says she's looking great. I appreciate that, my friend. Little by little, we're getting there, and that's important. Okay, the in-between, the two fingers here. Right here. So let's make this happen. Bunch of little changes makes a big difference. There we go. And let's zoom out and see how that looks. Yeah, more clarity in that hand, right? So I'm digging that. And let's see here. Okay, so that's working out. I still want to fix that one little finger there. But as we're looking at this, I'm just going to sneeze. Excuse me, I'll be right back. Handle this. Sorry about that, guys. The sneezing should be done shortly. That should be it. Thank you guys who are still here. Really sorry about that. I don't get allergies. I get sneezing attacks that come and go. They usually last like a minute or so. Oh boy. So sorry about that. I bet you guys wish the sound wasn't working now. You don't need to see me sneezing, so I'm going to take me out of the equation. And so excuse me. And let's just work on this a little bit more. And okay, so I'm happy with this. So now what we can do, excuse me, I'm gonna wash this out really well in the water, and then later I'm gonna wash it with soap and really get that really super clean. Oh, a whiff of lacquer thinner. You know, I have some turpentine. It usually goes away by now. But this one seems to be lingering, but I think that might have been the last one, guys. Hey, Mr. Todd, how are you? Good to see you, my friend. Okay, so what we're going to do, I feel for you, this is my, allergies, yes, Raul, sucks. So now what I'm going to do is we'll work on scratching out some of her hair here. Just some of the big shapes, right? No small shapes yet. But we're going in the direction of the hair, right? That's important, getting that direction, right? So making sure we're doing that and getting the large shapes. I'm using an aggressive eraser, and so I'm not getting too specific. But you can see that this ink really erases well on this paper. The paper is Colorline paper by Canson. I hope your allergies aren't too bad, my friend. Big shapes, guys. Big shapes. Remember the helmet, and then make it look like a wax hair. Get those large shapes, but the direction is really key, right? You have to get the direction and the characteristic of the hair as you're getting these lights strategically. A good solid line drawing underneath is really going to help you, but you don't want to be married to it, so you'll loosely follow it. And just get those shapes correct, right? And the direction, right? Some of these directions coming down like so. Some of these larger shapes. So at this point I can get rid of all the, because we're heading into the home stretch here. So I can take away all the magnets. Due to allergies, I may end a little bit early. Weird how it comes on so fast. Okay, there we go. That's how she looks without any of the acetate. So you see it's coming out pretty good. Slowly. We still have a couple of weeks left. Excuse that. Okay. And we're going to continue with our aggressive eraser, and we're going to be, well, we want to leave a couple of magnets here just to stabilize. Okay. And then right here we have this large shape, but we want to make sure we're getting the direction, right? We want the direction and the characteristic of her hair as we're coming down here. No individual hairs yet, just the large shape and the direction. We haven't used any white pastel. We haven't gone into medium mixture. It's just been diluted detail mixture last week, and then this week is full strength detail mixture. And again, just looking for the shapes. The large shapes. Take your time. Right in here is a negative space. Put that in there, that negative space of the hair, which is going to help us. Oh, Travis says he has a cough for the last 4 days and it's annoying. Sometimes the cough is so hard. Oh man, that's rough, my friend. I hope you feel better. I vegetable juice every day, and that seems to be doing wonders. If anyone out there vegetable juices, that has been really key for me in my life since, I would say, for the past 7 years. I've been juicing like a lot, but lately I've been like really on the ball. Now you see how we're actually creating a lot of the hair patterns, but not the individual hairs. And just notice how this is really bringing us closer, ever closer to our likeness of her, but we're not paying attention to the likeness. Not important. Not at this stage of the game. Okay, so let's move down to this quadrant of her hair. And we have this coming up here, like so. We have this is very much lighter right here. Some of these hairs coming up, large groups of hair. It doesn't look like much, but when we start coming in with the darker areas and scratching with the lighter areas and coming in and getting texture with the black-beard wheat, it's all gonna really start working out really nice for us. So I hope this live stream was informative and enjoyable. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And it's so encouraging and keeps me encouraged. So thank you everybody for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate that. Thanks Steve Leahy for the super chat sticker. I really appreciate that, sir. And like I said, I appreciate everyone who took their busy Wednesday, could have been doing a lot of other things, and I'm sure some that are more fun, to hang out with me, and that makes me happy. I'm just going to blow my nose real fast. Aren't you glad you're not looking at a picture of me doing that? Then we can, once we start getting in there, then we could worry about individual hairs, but not yet. Big shapes right now. Big shapes, directional shapes. Some of those negative shapes, put them in there, and okay, so let's not forget this side. There's some information here too. Let's come here. Right here by your finger, there's this kind of light shape here. Oh, Travis says, thanks for the feed. Can't wait to try the new custom badge. I'll be sure to share and post about it. Thank you, my friend. And I sent a video on how to assemble it when it arrives. Okay, sir? So when you have any question when it arrives, you let me know, Travis. Thank you, sir. I know you're going to do great things with it. And lots of bubble wrap, and it's really protected. And we are in the closing minutes, so that's cool. Even with allergies, I'm going to stick it out to full 2 hours because that's the kind of guy I am. Let's see. The direction, right? Right here in the corner of her eye, it's much darker in the white of the eye here. And let's go ahead and do that. I think we fooled around with the hair enough. Maybe we can work on some of the darks of the hair to shape that hair, but that's really important. The dark this side kind of helps with the expression. And again, the expression will come. So I have this detail mixture, and I would probably come in with the light mixture to work on some of the darks of the hair. But right now I could start to define some of the dark shapes right now. And you can see that quickly, when you work from the larger shapes, that quickly the hair takes shape. But remember, painting hair is cumulative, right? Means you're going to be painting the hair from pretty much the beginning of the painting to the finishing touches. That's something that is going to not be completed. If you complete it before everything else, before the end, then you're going the wrong route and you're treating hair the wrong way. Notice how the hair is really, thank you so much. Dwayne says, looking great. Tim, and excellent live feed. Thanks, Dwayne, for hanging out, my friend. I really appreciate it. Brad says, great live stream. Thanks. I appreciate that, my friend. And Travis, of course, said, great live stream. So thank you, guys. I appreciate yous a lot. Always, you guys are always the highlight of my Wednesday. Always, always, always. Now, if I ever have a hot date on a Wednesday night, then that might be the highlight of my Wednesday. But that has not happened in quite some time. So you'll be like, guys, no live stream tonight, hot date. And you guys will be like, cool. About time. That's what you'll say. You're like, man, he thought California had a drought. So we're at 11:29. So notice how, very quickly her hair really comes together when I just worked on the large shapes. Not only the large shapes, but remember the characteristics of the hair, right? Right? Remembering that characteristics of the hair. And we're going to come in with freehand shields and really do dark accents and highlights in the hair. But the hair, you should never finish the hair before everything else. That's something you're working from the beginning to the end. Perpendicular and not parallel. You just lift that freehand shield just a little bit up at an angle this way, and you're not going to get under spray. It's not going to want to escape underneath. Just know your tools, know their strengths, their weaknesses. just with the detail mixture. And here I'm going to calm this down. I'm just going to dust this here. Just calm it down, a little crazy. And now we have some good things happening. So guys, it is 11:30 and we have gone pretty far. So I'm thinking we're doing okay. Working on her really made the background kind of fall back, and that's what we wanted to. And so I'm adding a background with this. I may spray the background, the Celtic knots a little bit deeper, just to make more interest. And that's about it. So when we come back, we're going to be working with the light mixture, and then work with the light mixture and the detail mixture, and we're going to model those forms. And we may come in with the white pastel to introduce that. So we are really moving at a good clip. So guys, thank you so much. Air Todd, Dwayne, Brad, Travis, Raul, Colette, Wendy. We have Steve Leahy, and let's see who else was here. Don't want to forget everybody. Okay, Tone was here for a little bit. Mr. Chris Garcia was here. John Diekman, Pam, great to see you. Roy, that looks like it's about it. It was a small group today, but you know what? The people who were meant to be here were here. So thank you for being part of this live stream, and go ahead and check it out. I'm going to keep it recorded. It's always good to look at it. Even down the line, you might see something that could really help your portrait as you're working. Take care, guys. I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, and I hope to see you soon.